that about Diane that has always been the way she is, period, since I knew her at the age of 13. And that would be, she wants everything herself.
Hollywood has always been called the place where dreams come true. But the truth is, it was only for white people. For many years, black artists were held back and only given small roles or completely removed from movies. Because of this, some artists had to hide who they really were just to keep working. But hiding came with painful costs. Some of them, when they tried to tell the truth, were pushed to the edge, ended up owing money, and died alone. Some were forced by companies to hide their black roots before they could get any roles. And some stars were even watched by the FBI all day and night because they dared to fight against Hollywood's strict rules. Here is a list of 10 Hollywood stars whose black backgrounds stayed hidden until later. Behind all the fame, what terrible things did they go through? Chapter 1. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the man who refused to hide his black heritage. Not many people know this, but before becoming the most powerful man in Hollywood, Dwayne Johnson was once a boy who got made fun of at school. He was born in 1972 in Hayward, California, and he grew up in a family where success and pain went together. His father, Rocky Johnson, was one of the first black wrestlers to show up on American television in the 70s. He often performed at Madison Square Garden and even got on the cover of Sports Illustrated. His mother, Ada Johnson, was the daughter of Peter Maivia, the famous Samoan wrestler. Dwayne grew up caught between two worlds. On one side, he saw black wrestlers fighting to get a place in the ring. On the other side, he saw the proud Polynesian warrior traditions that cared about family honor. But American society back then was not welcoming at all. In the 80s and 90s, big movies were ruled by white, muscular men like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. Meanwhile, black actors were pushed into small roles or pushed aside in the worldwide market. When Dwayne first tried to follow his father's path, many people in the business ignored him and said he wouldn't go anywhere. A 1995 article in the Miami Herald even said he was only good enough to be a football player or a trainer, but never a Hollywood star. Things changed in 1996 when he showed up on WWF's Monday Night Raw using the name Rocky Maivia. The crowd booed him over and over. Wrestling forums made fun of him, saying he wasn't white, not fully black, just an outsider. The pressure almost destroyed him, as he admitted in his book, The Rock Says. But instead of giving up, he changed his character into the cocky, confident, self-mocking The Rock. Hollywood wasn't easy for him either. When he starred in The Scorpion King in 2001, critics like Kenneth Tran from the Los Angeles Times questioned if a face that wasn't white enough could become a worldwide box office success. Rumors said that Universal had to make his skin look lighter on posters to appeal to European markets. Fans started to ask, where did The Rock really belong? Dwayne refused to keep quiet. In a 2001 ESPN interview, he said, "My father is Rocky Johnson, a black man who bled to make the way easier for other wrestlers. I will never let anyone say he is not my father." His words not only stopped the rumors, but made him a symbol of pride. He purposely included his father's story in press events and talked about both his Samoan and black roots as parts that couldn't be separated. Instead of disappearing, his career took off. The Scorpion King opened with a record-breaking $36 million, making Dwayne the highest-paid actor in history for a first leading role. Even the newspapers that once doubted him, from the New York Times to Fredi, now praised him as Hollywood's fresh new face. Looking back, The Rock beat social prejudice by facing the truth directly. He didn't hide the past or avoid where he came from. He turned those things into power to win over the world. From a boy who was laughed at for how he looked and his skin color, Johnson became a worldwide figure, proving that an action star doesn't need white skin to reach the top.
Chapter 2. Mariah Carey, the singer forced to make her image whiter to sell records. When Mariah Carey first appeared on American TV in the summer of 1990, performing Vision of Love on the Arsenio Hall show, millions were shocked. An amazing voice hitting super high notes left critics and audiences unable to believe she was only 20 years old. But behind this first moment of fame, Mariah was pulled into the cruel game of the music business, where skin color and background mattered almost as much as talent. Her father, Alfred Roy Carey, was Afro-Venezuelan, while her mother, Patricia Hickey, was Irish and trained in classical music. From when she was young, Mariah felt the pain of being different. She remembered how neighbors in Long Island threw rocks at their windows just because her father was not white. At school, classmates whispered, "What is she? Not white, not black?" These words hurt her when she was young. When she entered the music world, prejudice continued. In the 90s, record company leaders, especially at Columbia Records, believed white singers sold better in mainstream markets. When she signed with Columbia, its head, Tommy Mottola, who later became her husband, shaped her as the perfect pop princess. Posters were edited to make her skin brighter. Her curly hair was straightened and every sign of her black background was blurred. Rumors went around that Columbia even stopped her from appearing at music events for black artists, scared that mainstream audiences might learn her true background. Vibe magazine in 1995 published a long piece calling her a woman living between two worlds, asking directly, who does she belong to? On MTV in 1994, Mariah admitted, "I've gotten used to being labeled by others. Sometimes even I don't know where I stand." But her talent was too bright to be hidden. Through the 90s, Carey got 19 #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, a record only the Beatles beat. Albums like Music Box in 1993 and Daydream in 1995 sold tens of millions around the world. Her huge commercial success forced Columbia and the media to rethink her. She wasn't just the white pop princess they had tried to create, but a cultural phenomenon. The turning point came in the early 2000s when Carey, in a conversation with Oprah Winfrey, said, "I'm proud of my father. I'm proud of carrying black heritage. It's a part of me that cannot be separated." Her words shocked audiences. Some were doubtful, others surprised, but many admired her honesty. After years of hiding, the reaction was huge. Columbia's policies of making her whiter were exposed while Carey stepped into a new role, a symbol who went beyond racial boundaries. People no longer called her just a pop star, but a queen, one of the few who changed how the world saw mixed heritage in music.
Chapter 3. Diana Ross, the Motown star criticized for being not black enough, not white enough. Detroit in the 1960s was a place of opposites. On one side, civil rights struggles. On the other, the rise of Motown, where Berry Gordy built the first black music empire to compete with the white mainstream. In this world, Diana Ross rose from the Brewster Douglass housing projects to the spotlight, becoming the soul of the Supremes. The group got over 12 Billboard #1 hits, even beating the Beatles for back-to-back chart toppers. But fame didn't mean freedom. To white audiences, Ross was the safe face of Motown. Her light skin, slim body, and elegant style led critics to say Diana Ross looks more like a Hollywood starlet than a black singer from Detroit. Meanwhile, within the black community, some blamed her for being too white, losing realness. Black magazines like Ebony described Ross as standing between two worlds, but truly belonging to neither. The pressure got worse when Berry Gordy poured resources into making Ross a solo international star. Rumors of a romantic relationship between Ross and Gordy only fed the belief that she was favored over her Supremes bandmates. When Ross left the group in 1970, Mary Wilson openly complained Motown always treated Diana as the only one who mattered. Her personal life became constant tabloid material. In the late 70s, she grew close to Michael Jackson, who often called her the most important woman in my life. Rumors of romance exploded when People in Rolling Stone published photos of them holding hands in Los Angeles in 1981. Despite them saying no, guessing continued, painting Ross as both admired and watched closely. Prejudice followed her into film when she was chosen to star in Lady Sings the Blues in 1972, playing Billie Holiday. Many white directors were against it, saying Ross was too glamorous to play a struggling black singer. In a tearful TV interview with Barbara Walters, Ross confessed, "I'm tired of being told I'm not black enough to sing black music and not white enough to be a Hollywood star." But she won. Ross earned an Oscar nomination, won a Golden Globe, and stayed one of the most successful black singers of all time. But her career was always followed by controversy. Was her success because of talent, or because she walked the fine line between black and white worlds? Ross's story shows the harsh reality of American entertainment in the 20th century. Even at the peak of worldwide fame, an artist could never escape the labels put on them by society. Chapter 4. Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood who hid his mixed background. The 1930s marked Hollywood's golden age. Los Angeles glowed with neon, celebrated as the symbol of the American dream. But behind it was a harsh studio system. MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, controlling every detail of actors' careers, contracts, and even their private lives. Within this, Clark Gable was shaped into the perfect American man. With his thin mustache, half-smile, and deep voice, he became King of Hollywood. But at the height of his fame, a rumor spread. Gable's family line had African and Native American heritage. At a time when Jim Crow laws still existed in the South, even a hint of such ancestry could end a career. Gossip columnist Hedda Hopper hinted in the Los Angeles Times, "There's something not entirely American about him." That unclear remark was enough to cause panic. Soon after, family records in Cadiz, Ohio, Gable's hometown, mysteriously disappeared. Insiders believed MGM erased them to protect their million-dollar star. Gable's actions only fed suspicion. On the set of Gone with the Wind in 1939, he defended Hattie McDaniel, his black co-star. When the studio built separate restrooms for black cast members, Gable angrily smashed the door and said, "If Hattie can't use this, then I won't shoot another scene." McDaniel later told about this on NBC Radio, shaking the nation. At the Atlanta premiere of Gone with the Wind, McDaniel, who would later win an Oscar, was banned from entering the theater. Furious, Gable threatened not to attend. Though he appeared under MGM's pressure, his stance earned praise from outlets like Variety and the New York Times, calling him a rare star who dares to resist Hollywood's cruelty. The rumors of his heritage were never confirmed but haunted him forever. Some directors quietly admitted to The Hollywood Reporter that Gable lost roles because his look wasn't fully white. Tabloids cruelly painted him as a man wearing white skin. But Gable wasn't just an actor. In World War II, after his wife Carol Lombard died in a plane crash in 1942, he joined the U.S. Air Force at age 40, risking his life in bombing missions over Europe. Once, his plane was hit and almost killed him. The image of King of Hollywood in a bomber cockpit made him a symbol for American soldiers. President Roosevelt even called him the star who carried light to the battlefield. Ironically, the man whispered to have unacceptable roots became America's face during its darkest time. Gable used his fame to defend black colleagues and gave his life to his country. His career was both a tragedy of hiding and a heroic story that lasts. Today, when audiences watch classics like It Happened One Night or Gone with the Wind, they don't just see a handsome star, but wonder, was the king also a man forced to live under Hollywood's mask?
Chapter 5. Dorothy Dandridge forced to give up acting. What am I doing? Most successful movie star in the world? But she was a black woman at the wrong time. In the 1950s, when whites-only signs still hung on American streets, Hollywood had its own unspoken rule. Black women could not be sex symbols, let alone lead actresses in major films. But Dorothy Dandridge dared to break that rule. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, Dorothy began her singing career in Los Angeles clubs with her sister Vivian. They performed at the Cotton Club, where rich white audiences came for entertainment. But black performers were only allowed on stage, never in the audience. Even so, Dorothy shined with her delicate features, light skin, and dreamy eyes that earned her the nickname, the Black Hedy Lamarr, from the press. Her big break came in 1954 with Carmen Jones, directed by Otto Preminger. Dorothy played Carmen, a sensual, free-spirited, and strong woman. The role made her the first black woman ever nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. The New York Times called it a historic turning point for American cinema. But this was also the beginning of her struggles. Hollywood praised her, but tried to control her image. Producers demanded that Dorothy wear makeup to make her skin look lighter and avoid harsh lighting. They wanted her to be a face acceptable to white audiences. Many directors refused to cast her in leading roles, pushing her into exotic mistress characters instead. Rumors spread that at an audition for The King and I in 1956, Dorothy was rejected right away for being too dark by Hollywood standards. Her personal life was dragged into scandal. Her relationship with director Otto Preminger was heavily used by tabloids. At the time, a black actress openly dating a famous white man was shocking. Newspapers like the Los Angeles Mirror ran headlines such as, "Dorothy trades her career for love." Rumor had it that major studios refused to work with her for fear of damaging their image because of the relationship. But Dorothy was more than a trapped beauty. She used her fame to call for change. In a 1955 Ebony magazine interview, she said, "I don't want to just be a pretty face on screen. I want to pave the way so that black actors can play any role, not just maids or nightclub singers." She became a voice for a new generation, though the price was a damaged career. The results were brutal. After the Oscars, Dorothy received no roles worthy of her talent. Contracts became fewer, and the press was obsessed with her love life. She sank into debt and depression. In 1965, Dorothy Dandridge died in a small West Hollywood apartment, leaving behind a legacy both bright and tragic. She was remembered not only for her beauty and talent, but as living proof of racial injustice in Hollywood. Still, Dorothy's pioneering efforts were not wasted. Thanks to her, later stars like Halle Berry could rise to win Best Actress at the Oscars. Halle once said emotionally on ABC in 2002, "Dorothy Dandridge opened the door that I simply walked through." Her story shows how Hollywood could raise a black woman to the height of stardom, only to push her into the pit when she dared step outside the lines. To continue this portrait of black singers of that time, we turn to Lena Horne, a woman both bright and defiant, who turned music into a weapon against discrimination.
Chapter 6. Lena Horne. The MGM star humiliated and cut out because of her skin. In the mid-1940s, Hollywood glowed in its golden peak. But behind the fancy gowns lay hidden prejudice. When MGM signed Lena Horne in 1942, Life magazine called her the first black muse of a major studio. Her delicate face, glowing skin, and soulful voice drew admiration. But Lena quickly realized that beauty and talent were never enough in Hollywood. Her salary was far lower than her white peers, even when her fame matched theirs. A Los Angeles paper once leaked MGM's payroll. Lena earned less than $500 a month, while a B-list white actress in the same film made over $1,000. Her contracts included a clause that scenes may be edited for regional markets, a coded way of saying her appearances would be cut in the segregated South. Her greatest heartbreak came when she saw her own work erased. In Cabin in the Sky in 1943, her performance under dim lights, singing with soulful grace, mesmerized New York audiences. But when the film showed in Alabama, her entire scene was deleted. Theater owners claimed Southern white audiences don't need to see a black woman looking like a Paris starlet. Some even mocked her as luxury decoration rather than a true actress. The injustice continued off-screen. During World War II, Lena toured to perform for U.S. troops in Arkansas. She walked into a hall only to see white soldiers seated up front, while black soldiers were pushed to the back, divided by a rope. Mid-song, Lena stopped, set down the microphone, and walked off stage. The next day, local papers mocked her as the troublemaker girl. From then on, many military shows stopped inviting her, labeling her rebellious. Rumors added fuel. Conservative critics whispered that Lena was chosen because she was light enough not to offend white audiences, but not white enough to compete with major stars. Such comments appeared in The Hollywood Reporter in 1945, cutting deep. Lena later admitted, "They said I was the perfect mix. The truth is, they only wanted me different enough to show off, but never enough to be recognized." But Lena refused silence. She openly supported NAACP campaigns and spoke at civil rights events. She was one of the few stars who refused to perform where segregation was enforced. In 1963, at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Lena stood beside Martin Luther King Jr. and declared, "I've been cut, underpaid, and pushed to the back, but I am still here, and my voice will never be silenced." Hollywood may have blocked her from becoming its biggest star, but it couldn't erase her legacy. Lena Horne became iconic not just for her timeless stormy weather, but because she proved that sometimes a single song could shake an entire system.
Chapter 7. Carol Channing. The shock at 80, admitting her father was black. For nearly half a century, Broadway and Hollywood audiences loved Carol Channing with her platinum hair, wide eyes, and bright smile. Her name was the same as Hello, Dolly, the 1964 musical that became legendary. She won a Golden Globe, earned an Oscar nomination, and had her star on the Walk of Fame. To the public, Channing was the typical white starlet of the Golden Age. But few knew that for decades, Carol and her family lived with a secret. Her father, George Channing, was of African-American descent. In Hollywood's Golden Age, where white sells tickets was basically law, just one revelation could end a career. Her family stayed silent, and Carol herself was forced to perform under the mask society demanded. The pressure was huge. In the 1950s, she reportedly broke down in a Broadway dressing room after a producer warned her, "Never let anyone know you have different blood in you. The audience will turn away instantly." Backstage rumors whispered that Carol isn't fully white, but no one dared speak out loud as MGM and theater bosses held too much power. The system was ruthless. Black stars, no matter their talent, were typecast as maids or lounge singers. Light-skinned performers like Carol became Hollywood's secret weapon, marketed as white, while their true roots were buried. Carol lived her life putting on heavy makeup, not just for performance, but to hide the fear that if the truth came out, everything would collapse. Only in 2002, at age 80, did Carol finally reveal the truth. In her memoir, and later on CNN, she admitted her father was of African descent. The revelation shocked America. The New York Times ran the headline, "Carol Channing, Half-Century Secret Finally Revealed." On forums, fans reacted with shock. Some felt deceived, but most admired her courage to finally speak out. On Larry King Live, Carol calmly shared, "I have nothing left to lose, but I still have one thing to give, and that is the truth. I don't want the next generation to live in fear like I did." Her words became a statement quoted by the Washington Post and Variety. Ironically, instead of ruining her reputation, the revelation turned her into an inspirational figure. Carol proved that even after living under a mask, one could reclaim their identity. By the end of her life, she wasn't just remembered as the Broadway queen, but also as proof of Hollywood's injustice, where beauty and talent were never enough if skin color didn't match the mold. Her story opens another view. Not only did Golden Age stars hide their heritage, even in the 21st century, when the world seemed more open, some stars still faced constant questioning about their background. A perfect example was Wentworth Miller, the Prison Break star who captivated the world but needed years before the public learned the truth about his roots.
Chapter 8. Wentworth Miller, the Prison Break star trapped between two worlds. In the early 2000s, when Prison Break aired on Fox in 2005, the world was stunned by Michael Scofield, the brilliant engineer with haunting blue eyes. Wentworth Miller, previously unknown, became a worldwide sensation overnight. But as fame shined on him, another problem appeared. Hollywood and audiences assumed Miller was fully white, given in sharp features and light skin. The truth was different. His father, Wentworth Earl Miller II, was of African and Jamaican descent, while his mother was English. Early in his career, Miller often heard whispers backstage. He's not black enough to play a black role, and not white enough to be the American leading man. An anonymous director once told The Hollywood Reporter that Miller lost roles because his look didn't fit the casting profile. Western media added to the whitewashing. European magazines like GQ and Vanity Fair made his skin lighter in cover photos, making him look like a classic white movie star. Few knew that in small interviews, Miller said sadly, "People keep wanting me to be something I'm not, while I just want to be myself." In 2007, a British tabloid accused him of hiding his true heritage to keep fans. The story caused an uproar, forcing Miller to respond in The Guardian. "I'm proud that my father is of African descent. I've never denied that, but I also know Hollywood doesn't want to mention it." The revelation shocked many, but instead of losing fans, Miller gained respect. He became a living example that skin color does not define human worth. Still, the constant tug-of-war of being not white enough, not black enough, left scars. In 2013, Miller admitted he had suffered from severe depression. He revealed he once went to therapy in Los Angeles because he felt he was living in two worlds, but belonging to neither. Rumors suggested he was hospitalized for weeks due to mental exhaustion, though reports stayed vague. This revelation made fans more understanding, realizing that behind Schofield's cool appearance was a man fighting invisible struggles. Miller's career after Prison Break never flew as high as before, but his image lasted differently, as a star who faced the truth, fighting the labels put on him. Looking back, Miller didn't just break out of prison on screen, he broke the racial molds Hollywood tried to trap him in. And to see how cruel truth can be, forcing talent to sacrifice everything, we must go back to the 1930s, where a woman dared to break barriers, becoming the first black Oscar winner, only to face constant injustice right after her victory.
Number 9. Hattie McDaniel, the first Oscar-winning actress, yet isolated on her night of glory. In 1940, at the 12th Academy Awards at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, history was made. Hattie McDaniel, for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind in 1939, became the first black performer to win an Oscar. The Los Angeles Times the next morning called it an unbelievable moment, but behind the glory was a silent humiliation few dared to speak of. On the very night she received her award, McDaniel was not allowed to sit with her co-stars Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable. The Ambassador Hotel followed segregation rules, forcing her to sit at a small table in the corner near the kitchen with only her manager. Out of more than 1,000 guests, she was the only one isolated. When her name was announced, the audience clapped, but the curious distant stares turned her win into a victory in loneliness. Later, a Variety reporter recalled her tearfully admitting, "I felt as if I was both honored and locked inside a separate room." The tragedy did not end there. Throughout her career, Hollywood typecast Hattie into roles of maids and caretakers. By the end of her life, she had appeared in more than 300 films, but over 80% of her characters wore aprons and spoke in servant-like tones. The press both praised and mocked her. A critic for the New York Herald Tribune bluntly wrote, "McDaniel is the greatest maid the screen has ever seen, but she will never be anything else." Inequality was also clear in her pay. Despite her Oscar win, Hattie McDaniel was still paid less than white actresses of lesser fame. Rumors spread that MGM once paid her less than a B-list actress for the simple reason audiences won't pay more for a maid role. McDaniel felt both proud and bitter. She had made history, but was still trapped in Hollywood's narrow mold. Scandal followed too. Some black activists accused her of selling out for accepting stereotypical roles. In 1947, the Chicago Defender ran an editorial asking, "An Oscar for Hattie McDaniel? Pride or humiliation?" Pressure from both sides, looked down upon by Hollywood, distrusted by her own community, she fell into isolation. Personally, 2 marriages failed, finances got worse, and by the end of her life, she had to sell belongings to pay medical bills. But her legacy is undeniable. Hattie McDaniel paved the way for later black performers to enter Hollywood, even though the path stayed full of thorns. The Oscar statue she donated to Howard University was later lost after a fire,
making her story even more legendary. Her story reveals cruel injustice. Even in glory, she was kept in society's separate room. But in the same time, another actress with skin so light many mistook her for white chose not to hide, but to proudly face Hollywood head-on. That woman was Fredi Washington, star of Imitation of Life in 1934, a symbol of the pain of being not white enough, not black enough.
10. Fredi Washington, the woman who refused to pass even at the cost of her career. In 1934, when Imitation of Life premiered, American audiences discovered Fredi Washington, a woman with bright eyes, delicate features, and fair skin that led many to mistake her for a European star. In the film, Washington played Piola, a light-skinned black woman forced to pass as white to survive. Tragically, the character's fate mirrored her own. Hollywood in the 1930s was brutally strict. Studios like Universal and MGM quietly followed the rule: the whiter, the more opportunities. With her fair skin, Washington could have easily passed into A-list stardom. Many insiders even told her to change her name and make up a European heritage. One producer bluntly told her, "If you pretend to be Italian or Spanish, I guarantee you'll be a star in 3 years." But Fredi Washington refused. She proudly declared herself black, fully knowing this meant closing Hollywood's doors on herself. In an interview with the Chicago Defender, Washington said, "I don't need to pretend to be someone else to be on screen. If Hollywood doesn't want to accept me as a black woman, that's their problem, not mine." The results were quick. After Imitation of Life, Washington was rarely offered leading roles. Directors held back. Studios turned their backs. Rumors went around that some films cut her scenes due to pressure from Southern distributors. Critics at the time said Washington had shot herself in the foot by refusing to pass. Her personal life also became tabloid material. Some gossip magazines claimed she had a relationship with a white producer, which ended once he learned her true heritage. Others meanly suggested Washington was jealous of white starlets because she couldn't break into their ranks. True or not, these stories fed her reputation as difficult to work with in Hollywood. Instead of fading away, Washington redirected her energy into activism. She became a strong voice in the NAACP, speaking out against unfair casting and fighting for equal opportunities for black artists. Her courage won her lasting respect. For later generations, Fredi Washington was not just the star of Imitation of Life, but a symbol of pride and realness in a world of prejudice. The price she paid was a short-lived film career, but her spiritual legacy lasts. Fredi Washington proved that stardom is not worth betraying identity. She entered history not for the number of roles she played, but for her unwavering stand against Hollywood's pressure to pass. While Hollywood always sparkles with glamour, but behind it are tragedies rarely spoken of. The 10 stars in this list proved that skin color once decided careers and lives. Their stories are not only history, but also reminders of injustices that still echo today. Which of these figures surprised you the most? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more shocking tales from Hollywood.